Hello, America world. We are in the same semi-ancient trap. So I want to this video, this live stream, is to show you guys, teach you guys about how to use names in difference slash s this holiday season. The names of countries A through Z. The how to use it properly is not leaving out the breaching method. A hyper additional name. Nature itself shows us a hyper additional name has been involved with questions that nature has been showing us to ask. Hyper additionally, from those natures shows us to ask ourselves and others when nature is not only itself as criminal insidiousness nature, but at countries A through Z, individually grouped and together, we are forced to entertain what they call sciences and what they call counters to it, and exceptions as collusion slash S. But everyone missed it because of all that what was entrenched for a method slash S where everyone didn't miss it. And everyone does it. This breaching method needs other things, others ourselves, increasingly to be blamed for things that it caused in the past, while it needs it simultaneously. Its roles with that now. And it is and has been showing the names of the people, the sciences, the names of the voices, and even easier as the grouping of countries. The breaching method, James Madison demonstrated consciousness. This breaching method tortures, extorts, and in fact, tribulates or enslaves, therefore physically enslaves any grouping of countries too. The religious messengers knew that it would have A through Z being used remotely by it. And then hyper additionally at the campuses. And the difference of exceptions with that or other known database location slash S, relativities, plural. Relative not only to hypersingular nature's identity, but hypersingular to a human fact, human nature breaching method. The proverbial devil, the proverbial shaitan. This Christmas season, don't have to believe in the Old Testament. Don't have to, like for example, the beginning of the Old Testament says, only defend right here, where the names of the people, the sciences will come together in the part that comes before it. And that comes before the part with the tree of life and knowledge of good and evil, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The part that comes before it says only depend right here, where the names of the people, the sciences will come together. Excuse me. And the part that comes before it. And this is about this volume science. Nature has been showing us that it generates two eyes between species bodies so we could discern it generating it. Nature's identity of eye progression itself. Nature shows us that it generates two sexes, male, female, right, between different species. So we can discern it generating it itself. But we could also, there's the rest of a lesson there. And ancients already appreciated this. But we have been prevented free speech. And the breaching method already showed everyone they had to hide how that's recorded by offensively pretending fake examples of free speech, fake exceptions. And where, as collusions, where all sides of criminal and civil cases at countries A through Z, at the same time, names in the cases, the news, the exceptions, everyone's campuses, no matter what country it's in, the exceptions, they have the same sequence shifts, relative delusions, relative collusion slash S, right when nobody wants them. But there are exceptions we can observe. Nobody wants collusions with the ocean. entire ocean polluted. Earth's a special difference is distinct from, being forced away, is distinct from death. Nature shows us this. And nature showed this to the ancients that revealed English. But then it rebuilt humanity. It forced checked her, persuaded the phenomenon of the only people who could operate the names of countries A through Z. In defense of themselves from a breaching method, they defended themselves wrongly. And then the other names of the species body had to defend themselves from that. Correctly, but wrongly too. But wrongly where it's like a virus. Building in and locking to the names of the people of sciences simultaneously. Incapable of affording that quality of fact treatment nature aspect /S. Necessary to be led by and to appreciate the answers that we should have had and have them. We have free speech. We know that. Not honest speech spoke about the suburbs, let alone the cities. Little kids throughout America know this. But see, we also know we have excuse. We also forgive everyone because we know the books are wrong. And like when they defend America's founders for slavery, they're framing them while under the guise of being in defense of them. They're also forcing a quality debate, a nature debate as criminal insidiousness nature that is being used to sense for and denounce for the breaching method that already measured and maintains confessed self-value collusion /S, right where no one values it, where the names of the people of the sciences are manifest and how they are manifest, where we are quality as fact, cheap nature, as syntax /syntax nature. For example, this breaching method can no longer afford to have discern what nature itself shows us about the value of why and of how. The predicate is valued to English, while the predicate act is valued to the law, and where the sciences share an identity. And while apparently not, all exceptions, exception nature come with demonstration /S of the same thing. So the same thing. Even boxing, martial arts, and wrestling. Boxing is what makes us shush to hear. What makes no sound, but prefers the shush sound. Boxing. Martial arts prefer the shush sound, or sometimes. And wrestling does not prefer the shush sound. And they are about fighting, but by the rules. But the rules have been abridged since some ancient times. And so a breaching method keeps consciously people incapable of fathoming what nature was showing us constantly. What the ancients couldn't fathom that anyone could forget, because nature demonstrates it. See, but now we all have only known ourselves through and as value nature systems, economies, and syntax with it, negotiations with it, through and as systems, precedents and statutes, reading value by that, appreciation of it, has been state collusion /S. If we step back, James Madison and the plural founders directed us not to refer to any of them, not to allow any of them pretended a name known, because they're doing what they're doing for the breaching method through other /S through all sides of subject groups and debates, people, narratives, agreements. There is a hyper foreign name involved here that nature itself is showing us to call it a hyper archetypal criminal enterprise. And because this breaching method originally used and uses consciously blame, and we can observe this. For example, the FBI repeated many times through the same method that they have the right to lie to people. They even have obligations. But then they but at the same time, they report things to the news. See, but it's not just them alone, it's the other agencies too. Where and how, like, for example, CBS has ongoing confessions and confirmations about their roles with digital and wire crimes and identity thefts and frauds. They have many people involved with Institute of Living at Hartford Hospital who have roles throughout the country with triages and with Washington, D.C. and with the World Trade Center. Used worse than just criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence. Forgiveness is because this was trained in on people. And how it was gotten away with, how you guys were sensed. Where how everyone, when we were kids. Where and how the things you remember, why and how the things you were shown to know why and how. Even though Black people's right to survive is evidence. And the Constitution unabridged is evidence. And Marbury versus Madison is evidence. Judge Napolitano said we have rights that are too numerous to have to list. The Constitution unabridged and identities of relativity to it. That we're not supposed to have to defend them in court. We have too many of them to even list. How expensive that would be. So then they would, the breaching method would have to show them, or you have to pretend you have other motives, or pretend because we're trying to deter crime by making it expensive. And then, the breaching method, wherever we speak about guilt, we can't leave the breaching method out. We have to look at those points of guilt where the collusions are forced or that body is sensed. In other words, there are only 3 branches of government at countries A through Z. They have wire crime acts and methods that are manifest. This is a predicate act with that. I'm not even a lawyer. Lawyers, part of the reason is because lawyers originally instill the names of the people of the sciences are a projection. They're making and having made confessions to the breaching method, the hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise, worse than war crimes. For example, a crime group, even if it's not real, let's pretend it's real and show, make everyone, because relative to those things that no one know how to speak about properly, we're going to learn about predicate acts. You guys have to get me off the fake conversations with CBS, Channel 3 News, and their sources, including the interbranch ones, and fake ties to others as a kid and as an adult, and fake ties to doctors. Channel 3 News has roles attaching kids to fake ties to doctors who have their kids involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. That's one of the reasons they have the problems with the borders the way they do. And it's about drugs, because they have all kinds of drugs, medicines, crimes. Because they have criminally foreign influence use of location /S collusion /S. Many people from UPS to Hartford Hospital sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. They have collusion /S with predicate acts with facts and databases. They don't even know the extent of it. And these are people that sought me out. I love tied. And to all those things I noted, you guys. These are people who put fake conversations with me through through the mail too to other people. I can't get a response from Harvard Hospital. Three times they recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Before that too, they have a whole bunch of people tied to it. Kevin Dillon, and in Parks and Recreation, and retired Wethersfield police chiefs involved with untimely deaths and murders and body dumping spots years apart, totally different than the body dumping spots reported murderers. And all sides of criminal and civil cases in the interbranch switching name sequences, fake news at the same time, collusion/S, increasingly people with whiting forensics in Connecticut. Excuse me, having had collusion/S, planting evidences, identity theft, fraud, slander, fake motivations for it on my street in the parallel streets. Not just against me, they do it against them too. My algebra class teacher repeated sexual things about, I don't know, I never of a girl that used to live near me. And that's increasingly being brought up by people next to Fox Connecticut News, involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and Thaddeus Grabowski. Has collusions of people all along to a highway where it runs into Hangdog Lane, and conjunctions to it into that. It has something in retired Wethersfield police chiefs involved with untimely deaths, identity theft, fraud, things, wire crime acts and methods where interagencies they value, and intermilitary they value, faked and changed digital evidences, faked and changed, phone transcripts, and they faked conversations and ties to me at the Wethersfield police station as a kid, now as an adult, and as them with Saudis now too, forced to collusions. But they were also forced by others too. So two Mendez, reportedly brothers. And the older one, I never had a word of conversation with him in my life. And I didn't have a word of conversation with anyone else there that day when he forced my Saudi my Saudi ex to his collusion with fake falsified police reports with a principal upskirt nature and people named Scalora. She wasn't next to me. I mean, we should, with the World Trade Center attack, with spots next to it, including the court next to it, and both sides of that case. Central Connecticut State University and police forms into cities, they have people named Scalora. Also with Facebook, involved with, and people with the name Fred Grisey, recorded and confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with proven child abusers, leaders of kids, years apart and more then and now. But these are also people with the state corrections offices, judicial branch offices, collusions with all natures of crime scenes, using every truth for lie. This is one of the things everyone and the people attacking themselves are all missing at the same time and trying to speak about it at the same time. There's a quality of fact-cheating nature that is worse than just criminally foreign influenced. And it is reliant upon things like criminal foreign influences to be and to stay blamed. Now one has trained. So there's a Maria Pizzino and a whole bunch of people at Harvard Hospital involved with a Brian Bonin and a Delafair family sought me out to pretend I never saw them on campuses. They have a probate court judge in their family. I never saw them in my area either. Never saw them around school. Some Delafair brothers. I even only know the name of two of them. But they have probate court judges, and one of them or two of them, I don't know, had intimate relationships with people that were also probate court families involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders in the same house /us with the police that had actual conversations with people, and those people gave depositions how they wanted them to fake things into records, fake ties, fake nature ties to me, and fake motivations for it. And that increasingly is brought up because these are people involved with the World Trade Center attack before it, intercities and intra-cities, with nice people also consciously inter and intra campuses. Uh, Eric, the intelligence community recorded confessed, demonstrated a whole bunch of people tied to an ass. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, involved with child abusers, leaders of kids, abusers of elderly, and all the other things I've been mentioning. They have people, a Joe DeMoro and a Ray Reynolds and a Ray Cololo and an Eric Jensen and a Mike Roberts have roles with the state judicial branch offices and corrections offices and Route 3 and conjunctions to it and to that, like the state judicial branch offices. And Route 175 from the founding locations in Old Weathersfield, Connecticut, like where there's a witch trials place next to Webb House, now renamed the O.F. Stevens Museum. But they have other communicated about those places. Then our founders left us to communicate about the founding plan and about how and why not to entertain other than James Madison pretended one of the founders, plural, known by name. See, by pretending that's debatable, everyone's replacing and sensing for the breaching method only self-value collusions replacing. Collusion/S replacing what our founders declassified. About why and how no one wanted free speech. Why and how our plural founders and James Madison wanted nothing to do with slavery. They wanted nothing to do with the breaching methods, laws and rules against all women, but not just the breaching method. It was at the same time overt criminal enterprises, private ones, sick international companies, sick international countries, sick campuses, hyper-additionally. Or, all that only permitted, and it was like that for a method. And then the founders, not just of America, but so we could observe how it was entrenched already there too. That's one of the evidences is how England doesn't remember the history of English properly. It's evidence. This breaching method has even the voicings even easier, the voicings of any grouping of countries, as long as they are systems self-value, tactical terror from how nature uses groupings. Like the unity of a human species body, the unity of a species body of a whole bunch of individual bodies. And right where there are all those group differences, where it's volume science. That which is all things, well, not, but anyway. And then further, as the value of the system here, and it rolls with a special difference here, or a special difference is forced from here, as forced space nature transfer, not as the death of the seas, because the seas aren't criminally foreign influenced. And it's not just because of criminal foreign influences. This breaching method, and it's not just because of this breaching method, needs things like criminally foreign influences. Criminal foreign influences blamed wrongly until that's true more and more to hide behind and through it. It made all kinds of identities of integrity. Tactically breached integrity, like the suburbs from America to Russia to Ukraine. There are no excuse. But with your research, James Madison detailed. We know that they had a torture, extortion, slavery method entrenched. When there were homes built before America's founders were even born, only roles, even with slavery, were permitted: northern colonies, southern colonies. That's not clear because the campuses have been collusions, framing our founders for slavery under the guise of defending them, our founders. Again, unnamed founders. James Madison's plan had forced everyone at the same time to an extent to help with the American Revolution, the Constitutional Convention, the Declaration of Independence. You don't force somebody to do it. Why they had slavery left. They had to leave slavery entrenched northern colonies and southern colonies. They wanted us to understand that was forced by the breaching method. They declassified this. Why was it replaced? How was it in place? Replaced insidiously. The breaching method showed them to say, "Oh, well, look, this is what the record of what was spoken at the time. That's science." Our founders declassified for us to understand why nobody had free speech, while they had to pretend other to an extent /s, or that body was sensed. This breaching method showed them how to speak about crimes, regardless of the whole witch trials place was made up or not. It's next to Webb House, where James Madison where George Washington had to come, with James Madison's plan, with the leverage behind of those plural founders that enabled it to be pulled off. Right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, James Madison had to come to counter-extort, make people do what they was against the law for them to do, against the overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, against the sense and sensibilities, to use Jane Austen's phrase. But use the phrase hypercriminally for an influence. We must make the laws. The law there are lawyers and judges who will agree. See, we have to address how we have to use the hyper-evidential. And it will show how all sides of criminal and civil cases. It will show, too, the prisons and the corrections offices. Sandy Hook has a prison in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, Newtown, Connecticut. They have people involved also with child campuses, where they have crimes with the crime scenes and names next to the crime scenes, including with the news, increasingly collusions with organized crimes and cover-ups of that, using next to all location certain type of victim / hyper victim shown needs to overcome that too. The names of the people assigned as forgiveness is so we can focus on the predicate acts and the method of them, with the identity theft, fraud, slanders against anyone who speaks about the predicate acts method /s correctly. Because nature is showing us to describe it that way. Many pray. I'm not even a lawyer. It's just one of the things too. Note that nature is showing us that it is why. It is the main reason why the predicate is named the predicate. And it is valued by English to be about a predicate is a hyper-additional name for a verb relative to our appreciation of the main verb. And for example, a present participle, past participle, those are also hyper-additional words for a verb. And they're about time. Because everything is about this identity of forever nature. That is why and is how all things are bound, even 3 parts of time. And see cell, nucleus, cell, body, cell, wall, see Trinity. See, Jesus Christ said that he is the Alpha and he is the Omega. This is also cipher to decipher, as the ancient gaming system has, but I have to fix that a little bit. But the alpha inside the word alphabet. See omega with N between it and M. Mother. The 13th letter of the English language, the middle letter of the English alphabet. And mother is distinct from omega, but they are not distinct. And alpha and omega are inseparable from each other, but also with an equally value the difference of that. And here, with a special difference, also gaining that difference, or as it forced from here. As forced space nature transfer, nature being identity, a hyper additional word for identity. Because the identity of a cell is in the ones like cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall, /S. In the water and its elements and the gases in their elements coming through it with the identity coming through the cell /S. The body of life, the body of Christ. That is also ciphered to be deciphered because the campuses were already breached from off them. We could observe increasingly it is from off-ball location /S everywhere the species body is. A breaching method that needs other things, others ourselves, blamed for how wrongly for what it caused historically with this. Actively, and while showing everyone, it controlled their speech, their syntax, their speculation, the opinions, science, with what is called science, abridged. Systems, voicings for humanity, for the human species body of individual bodies. Nature doesn't have us with syntax systems other. It shows us with our short words. The moment we would be using abridged systems, it shows us, as the breaching method knew it would. As the breaching method knew that at countries A through Z, nature will be showing us. It knew that nature would be showing us, and nature is showing us increasingly. There is a human fact human nature breaching method that is manifest at locations, areas, and states A through Z. And our founders, to an extent we know, they sensed it and communicated to us about it. But this breaching method read those declassified communications and appreciated it. Before we could have and first, I already had everyone abused education for this. They replaced this breaching method shows them it knew that each age of fact human nature has obligation, like needs to use words like, phrases like criminal foreign influences. And then when we would have brought up there, nature shows us we need to invent this, not prevent, but reveal the difference between criminal foreign influences and hyper criminally foreign influence. Or nature will keep on demonstrating. See, but this breaching method only allowed collusion /S. But then nature demonstrates those collusions too. So before anyone could tell on the breaching method, even though everyone wants to tell on it, the breaching method has everyone or anyone jump in and have all of the roles of individuals grouped and all together. Only permitted collusions has nature's demonstrations of that instead countered and then defended. How that is motivated, even though it's against everyone's self to do that. We have to understand how there is a proverbial devil, proverbial shaitan that knew that it was going to get in trouble. A hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise, or a criminal enterprise, or a transnational group. Before religious messengers were born, modern religious messengers, a transnational group realized it was going to get caught here and there at their countries. And they figured out the only way they could get away with it was to do really bad things first to innocent people, and to frame other people, have them frame it, have to counter it wrongly, and then have those people counter wrong, and everyone missing the breaching method's roles with that. So then it became a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise. And consciously, see, the ancients already understood how nature works and communicates with our syntax, you know, showing us it's generating why and how even insects have an extent of consciousness shared with us, awareness of our consciousness. There are, like, if you ever, insects, they're aware if you're going to be a threat to them or not, of your consciousness, your state towards them, even. Nature shows us the answers. Nature shows us that having two eyes is distinct from having two sexes. Two sexes, and the difference is value there. Where three parts of itself are inseparable from any individual part of itself. And for example, that's why and how a species individual body, made up of a whole bunch of individual bodies, has group differences. See, math and the grouping symbols, and math and relativity. Having black pupils, whites of eyes is all about relativity. Having two eyes, while bugs have two eyes, fish have two eyes, birds, chimpanzee. Here, Anthony, vaccine. I teach us things, but long. In other words, because since semi-ancient times, the Republic has been, from off it, abridged. By the way, there are proofs that yin yang was also revealed to be taught with this. The ancients valued the way nature shows us to. Nature shows us when we try to do things as a human species body, of individual bodies, is all. You want one little part of your body plotting against the other part of your body? The only reason that's self-valued is because you guys were used remotely by a hyperforeign. The only reason people self-value roles with least of high, with polluting the whole ocean, is because when you have subject treatments inside the nature of debate /S, you guys have the breaching method left out. Say of sense and sensibilities that can't be any state but collusion /S with descriptions of it too, of behavior, of emotions, of motivations. A breaching method has stayed roles with the motivations of people at countries and physique. Here Anthony boxings again, but makes a shush to hear. Have these two try. I'll shadow box this holiday season. At least some pace, some try. Some rest, I tell it best boxing. So we can discern what is sound while rest. The value of rest, too. What came from nothing makes more of itself through temporary /lasting space nature. Through how the identity of all space /existence started valuing parts of itself distinctly, preferring parts of itself, but equally, distinctly. And that made each part of itself more value, concentrated value. But they each make the other parts of itself even more value. At the same time, where it became increasingly valued. And then matter was generated. And we can discern this through the extent of its identity of relationship to its identity that we could discern. That one generating totally distinct individual species bodies of individual bodies, and with group differences generated between the totally different individual bodies, species bodies. And then even with the plant life, we are shown all things are distinct, but also non-distinct. And all identities of volume is a distinct identity of volume from all others. But while not, but as the only one that's non-distinct and distinct at the same time. As it's how it is functional this way. For example, discerning a discernible scientific value, how it is not us nor them that generates these things that we all are shown together too, like 3 parts of time. And how we know there's a part of time in the past. To the extent the past we know about it was, we know everyone longed food and water. We know everyone longs love. We know that everyone longed freedom, including the people who are longing wars. But what everyone missed is the breaching method's roles with that. Before the church used confessions, a breaching method forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded the only people who could operate the phenomenon of the names of countries. Again, to blame other things, others, yourselves for what it caused and keeps. And then to have, without anyone realizing, it built upon a method that has even our campuses today. Sensing for the breaching method, anyone not self-value collusion /S, replacing what our founders said about the founding plan and why and how not to refer to them as known names, except for James Madison. And so, for example, there are people that have sensibilities that we are seeing with the arts. And these are our founders because they're against a king. There was slavery entrenched northern colonies, southern colonies. That's because of a king, because it was entrenched there too. A king's time. Look how much time it takes for any leader. See, that's going to be used by torture, extortion, slavery, by the breaching method, the hyperform, but it's going to be used through other /S. So then when nature demonstrates that to it, it will demonstrate that too. And already perfected using that to keep motivated roles, forcing, all natures of integrity are styles of logic, natures of logic that are shown, that were and are used remotely, shown they need to keep other things, others, themselves blamed, for example, for the real causes of the negative value nature progressions, acts of nature, like the ocean pollution. Like why and how the suburbs are the way they are, tactically denatured. The suburbs is unfathomable. So we have to pay. The breaching method only allowed mass farming. Of course, we need mass farming now. And they only allowed the farmers to be victim too, like the soybeans and with this in the China and the technology. That's because of eighth countries, A through Z, right where nature itself has been showing us. A human factory nature breaching method is involved here also. Other things, others, ourselves, are forced to be blamed. Right where our founders communicated for us to understand there was a breaching method entrenched. They had even slavery forced northern colonies and southern colonies roles only permitted, and then America's founders were born. They have that worse than obfuscated as collusion /S with the predicate acts to facts method /S. Multi-front against all human differences. Multi-front against the kids. Multi-front against the middle-aged, not distinctly, but also non-distinctly. And multi-front distinctly against elderly, distinctly, but also non-distinctly. And to, in a way, to have everyone be the sense and sensibilities and announcements for the hyperforeign. Anybody starting to adapt, even if it's a majority of people, even if it's any united country, starting to adapt with all the signs, the proofs of it. Clearer than day, there are fronts on all locations /S this way. Also with conscious abuses of each age of fact-cheating nature. But through ourselves, everyone's making opinions. Who thinks it's debatable? That the sciences never spoke for the suburbs properly, let alone New York City, let alone cities across the world. There are suburbs from America to Russia to Ukraine. They look almost exactly the same. There are houses built before America's founders were born. Again, and slavery was forced north and south. More than one country was involved. All these countries too, all fake sides, both sides of issues. Yeah, it's just game because you guys are being used remotely by the hyperforeign. Inter and intercultural, identity theft, fraud, slander styles. Otherwise, that body was incensed. There is a method /S manifest, and it just brings positive things and solutions with all these different subjects, but no one follows mandated law. The FBI recorded themselves with an extent of collusion /S with people who talk to them and then give reports to news locations. And then, in other words, it's the difference of guilt of intelligence at the network locations or next to them, and conscious uses of exceptions like public television. And lawyers, all sides of criminal and civil cases, lawyers, the sources, their family members, further with their roles with app placements, with the networks, with time, with location /S uses. All they do. Already this breaching method uses remotely names on all sides of criminal and civil cases in the interbranch and foreign. And news at the same time, criminal enterprise, private one, terrorists, even when they're not in a case, with the same sequence shifts, relative predicate acts with facts method /S collusion. See, everyone all of a sudden, all of a sudden everyone starts using the word extremism, and radical all of a sudden has a totally different meaning than it had through the arts. No. In the syntax nature of the campuses in the past. You guys have criminally foreign influence readings of religious books. And then you guys are speaking about isms. That's the problem. Then you guys want to have a nature debate, and they have readings of statutes and precedents that are also criminally foreign influence. But we have to address it out here. Because then once you get to the court, they paint things there. They already recorded them. They already changed the evidence. See, there's hyper evidential. Nature showing us to discern of this new nature of evidence. Witch trials, what they're about, even if they're completely made up. George Washington had to come to Webb House, like right there, not far from where the witch trial place is. George Washington had to come to the counter extort because it was against the sense and sensibilities of and the laws, not just the laws, but all the overt criminal enterprise, private, everyone's sick. And sensing for and announcing for the hyperforeign, but through layers of other /S. It was a method of keeping everyone used remotely from abroad, but also from hyper abroad. And not one discerns. And all exceptions, exception nature, everyone's defending use /S of exceptions, exception nature. Tactical terror from how nature uses exceptions and exception nature being it. Unlike any other one. In other words, so we could see fake exception nature being have. We can see that already recorded was and is roles with all sides of criminal and civil cases in the courts and interbranch. Oh, but that's my job. All kinds of defenses. Oh, but that's my job, and that's how we do. Roles with a screening, a breaching method that was involved with all that. This breaching method needs that country's the other things others ourselves blamed about its roles in the past, active together. This is why and how we have the breaching methods roles with having reassigned black people's rights and lives for so long, roles with that. And then America's founders were born. This breaching method knew that anyone entertaining, even if you're forced to entertain syntax by systems other than the human species body of individual bodies, group differences, the way nature communicates, showing us we're its difference. That volume that is not any other volume, while it is all things anyway. And why many pray. But now they pray also because there is criminal insidiousness / hypercriminal insidiousness manifest at location / S. And to hide itself, it already has collusions with uses of their differences and of others, the names of the people of the sciences. It showed them how to speak about difference, value being spoken about. There's no a breaching method you assigned all that stuff. These are things replaced from the communications of James Madison. This is where the breaching method has been using the names of the people of the sciences remotely, showing them they need to hide that, pretend other. Self-value, how so many books have been stayed that way. Use this value they are not. The logic of the syntax in those books, the nature of it, criminal insidiousness nature / hypercriminal insidiousness nature. I'm not a lawyer. The names of the people of sciences are criminally pointed with tactical illusions raw. A lot of people will tell you. I mean, it's observable. They have worse than criminal incompetence because that was the way they were trained. Otherwise, they were sensed. And this is good people. Good people have failed to speak about the predicate acts and facts method because they were child abused. Supposed to know clearer than day. Organized crime method worse than war crimes. Made countries A through Z fight with each other, and it did the opposite at the same time because of how it knew. Nature does increasingly show us. One of the things that all those affronts on women's rights, on black people's rights of eyes, on Native American rights, and how it was a breaching method, tactically denatured the ground to make everyone need. Hello? Thought I heard someone call me. So just don't leave out the breaching method. Nature will pay you back the right way, because that's the right answer. That's why the ocean's polluted. Don't leave out its role / S and how it could, because in other words, it uses all sides of criminal and civil cases and crime scenes at the same time, and already did that with other collusion / S. All kinds of things and names involved with all kinds of things and names had all kinds of other things and names blamed for so long. It's like a perfected method of doing this. You just get them on paper into branch first. And with the news, please fix the fake news. Get enough fake comments. The news has been planting things to keep covered up how increasingly all ages and natures of investigations investigate a certain type of victim / hyper victim. Same way with the other foreign ones, overt criminal enterprises, private ones. But we can never address that because you guys won't allow the breaching method addressed because it's also victim predator, hyper predator, but having you use a lie about the motivations too, even with the true motivations for the screening, because the breaching method is part of your motivations, Americans. That's why how you have left out how it is inseparable from understanding American history and what nature communicates to us about American history. There was a human factor nature breaching method entrenched. And it was and is forcing entertained, replaced what nature communicates with Black people's rights of eye. Now think about that and what phrase in there and why it echoes to our minds, America.